Let's listen to the president. He's talking about Greenland right now, 20 minutes into his address at the World Economic Forum.
To be able to defend
and then we'll
their
come
own
back and talk to you about
territory.
today's episode.
And the fact is, no nation or group of nations is in any position to be able to secure Greenland other than the United States. We're a great power, much greater than people even understand. I think they found that out 2 weeks ago in Venezuela. We saw this in World War II, when Denmark fell to Germany after just 6 hours of fighting and was totally unable to defend either itself or Greenland. So the United States was then compelled, we did it, we felt an obligation to do it, to send our own forces to hold the Greenland territory, and hold it we did at great cost and expense. They didn't have a chance of getting on it, and they tried. Denmark knows that. We literally set up bases on Greenland for Denmark. We fought for Denmark. We weren't fighting for anyone else. We were fighting to save it for Denmark. Big, beautiful piece of ice. It's hard to call it land. It's a big piece of ice. But we saved Greenland and successfully prevented our enemies from gaining a foothold in our hemisphere. So we did it for ourselves also. And then after the war, which we won it big. Without us, right now you'd all be speaking German and a little Japanese, perhaps. After the war, we gave Greenland back to Denmark. How stupid were we to do that? But we did it. But we gave it back. But how ungrateful are they now? So now our country and the world face much greater risks than it did ever before because of missiles, because of nuclear, because of weapons of warfare that I can't even talk about. 2 weeks ago, they saw weapons that nobody ever heard of. They weren't able to fire one shot at us. They said, what happened? Everything was discombobulated. They said, we've got them in our sights. Press the trigger, and nothing happened. No anti-aircraft missiles went up. There was one that went up about 30 feet and crashed down right next to the people that sent it. They said, what the hell is going on? Those defensive systems were made by Russia and by China. So they're going to go back to the drawing boards, I guess. Greenland is a vast, almost entirely uninhabited and undeveloped territory. It's sitting undefended in a key strategic location between the United States, Russia, and China. That's exactly where it is, right smack in the middle. Wasn't important nearly when we gave it back. You know, when we gave it back, it wasn't the same as it is now. It's not important for any other reason, you know, everyone talks about the minerals. There's so many places, there's no rare earth, no such thing as rare earth. There's rare processing, but there's so much rare earth. And this, to get to this rare earth, you got to go through hundreds of feet of ice. That's not the reason we need it. We need it for strategic national security and international security. This enormous unsecured island is actually part of North America, on the northern frontier of the Western Hemisphere. That's our territory. It is therefore a core national security interest of the United States of America. And in fact, it's been our policy for hundreds of years to prevent outside threats from entering our hemisphere, and we've done it very successfully. We've never been stronger than we are now. That's why American presidents have sought to purchase Greenland for nearly 2 centuries. You know, for 2 centuries they've been trying to do it. They should have kept it after World War II, but they had a different president. That's all right. People think differently. Much more necessary now than it was at that time, however. In 2019, Denmark said that they would spend over $200 million to strengthen Greenland's defenses. But as you know, they spent less than 1% of that amount. 1%, there's no sign of Denmark there. And I say that with great respect for Denmark, whose people I love, whose leaders are very good. It's the United States alone that can protect this giant mass of land, this giant piece of ice, develop it and improve it and make it so that it's good for Europe and safe for Europe and good for us. And that's the reason I'm seeking immediate negotiations to once again discuss the acquisition of Greenland by the United States, just as we have acquired many other territories throughout our history, as many of the European nations have. They've acquired, there's nothing wrong with it. Many of them, some went in reverse, actually, if you look. Some had great, vast wealth, great, vast lands all over the world. They went in reverse. They're stuck back where they started. That happens too. But some grow. But this would not be a threat to NATO. This would greatly enhance the security of the entire alliance, the NATO alliance. The United States is treated very unfairly by NATO. I want to tell you that. And when you think about it, nobody can dispute it. We give so much and we get so little in return. And I've been a critic of NATO for many years. And yet I've done more to help NATO than any other president by far, than any other person. You wouldn't have NATO if I didn't get involved in my first term. The war with Ukraine is an example. We are thousands of miles away, separated by a giant ocean. It's a war that should have never started, and it wouldn't have started if the 2020 U.S. presidential election weren't rigged. It was a rigged election. Everybody now knows that. They found out.
Let me take his audio down a little bit. We're going to keep watching. Let me just set the stage for everybody for today. An unusual episode. The president arrived in Davos late because of a problem with Air Force One. But he started nearly on time. It was scheduled to start at 8:30 Eastern, started at about 8:40. It's been going nearly half an hour now. And by coincidence, right at the top of our program, he turned to Greenland. And you heard, I think, the most focused and sort of substantive case that he has made for why the United States wants to do this. And was relatively conciliatory at times. Haima Moore is here. Hogan Gidley is here. The only thing happening in the world today on our radar that's significant is the Supreme Court. Besides this, the Supreme Court is hearing the Cook case today on whether the president can fire Fed governors for what he views as cause. So what we're going to do is we're going to watch the speech together, what we call mystery science, a mystery political science theater. We'll be respectful to the president, but we'll toggle up and down here and listen to him at times and let Hogan and Haima comment. And so while we listen to the president, because much of the speech now is going to be on other matters, but he might double back to Greenland. We want to also hear him on some other topics. But let's start. And again, good morning, gentlemen. Thank you both for being here. Raise your hand if you want in on the conversation. Let's basically restrict our conversation, at least at the beginning here, to Greenland. And we'll get to you all before too long, although the president may take the full hour. We'll see. Haima, thoughts on how the president framed what he wants to do with Greenland?
I think that's been probably the best part of the speech so far. I think everyone was, looking and waiting to hear what he would say. And it seems like he has finally put together some sort of coherent package as to why it makes sense. And so I think that was refreshing to hear. I still don't fully agree with him, but I think this was the most salient message he's had in the last 3 weeks.
Hogan, you know the president well. Why would he come in conciliatory? What's the logic of that?
Well, he's also on a global stage where he's going to try and partner with these countries. And this is one of the things you just pointed out, Jaime, that I think is so astute, which is he talked about this in terms, yes, he mentioned rare earth and he mentioned the minerals and the financials of it, but he also talked about the national security interest of it. Yep. And when he came into that room too, into that subject, he started talking about we want to move to immediate negotiations on the matter with other countries. Again, not saying anything about war, not saying anything about invasion, but let's have conversations, negotiations, if you will, with European nations that also have a vested interest in this. But also, I think this point should be made. Oftentimes we view this as politics just started or stopped with Donald Trump. Like, he's not the murderer of politics here. He's the coroner. He came in and said the entire thing's dead. The whole system's dead. We're going to try to find a new way to do things. And so he used that kind of method to point out other countries have done this too. American presidents have talked about this too. This isn't out of left field. This is kind of part and parcel of the national security ideology of this administration and this president. And lastly, I'll say, what strikes me about this consistently is he's talked about the national security aspect of it with Russia and China. That tells me, and I have no indication of this, please don't say I know something about the inside of this, I don't. What it does tell me, though, is that I think he has some intel that shows Russia and China are angling for this strategic landmass. That's interesting to me.
Yeah, good point.
Really interesting from both of you.
They say that something that's easy is like a walk in the park. Well, easier than a walk in the park, hit the subscribe button, be part of the two-way community, never miss an episode, be part of our conversations. Thank you for your service to America.
And don't forget, you can now listen to the morning meeting and Two-Way Tonight on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.